up the mind by they first getting their head out the sand. And the sand is in the desert. And the Arabian sands is the sand that's confusing them. Because it's the home of the war. So Houthi went to set up Egypt to watch them niggas they landed on Mount Hermon. This is your fallen angel story. Ain't nobody failed. They came down here. The so-called war in heaven, extraterrestrial warfare, landed on Earth.
Thank you. Thank you. So those are these stories we hear. These are all aliens, so-called aliens.
They are aliens, except for the ones that was on the ground already.
Okay.
Because they tell you the story from both the ones that came down, then they tell you the story from the perspective of the ones that's watching it on the ground. But remember, less than 0.01% of people of the day supposed to have been able to read and write.
Right.
Let that sink in for a minute. So who's telling the stories, and why are they telling the stories in the manner they're telling them, and what do that have to do with how we see our worldview today? It's playing a long game. The average person is only living for today. But the eternal ones watch the long game because they got nothing else to do. We did this before. This ain't our first rodeo, and this ain't our last dance.
Thank you. Excuse me. Did they teach us writing, how to write and read? Because that's what some of the stories say about we
was telepathic. We didn't need to write we knew how to read or transfer information, but we would have to put it on stuff. It was telepathic. All of us was on a telepathic mental network.
Right. Speaking through the mind. But I believe that. I definitely am all.
It was impossible to forget anything.
And what about telekinesis, like psychokinesis?
We was able to do all that. We still able to do it. We just don't know how to train the faculty.
I know how to do it, but they make fun of me. So I stopped doing it on the internet. I stopped showing everybody.
Listen. Once you learn how to use the psychic faculty, almost all of that stuff, like superhero powers you see in the cartoons, are exaggerations.
Yes, sir.
Dial it down and say, what would this look like in reality? Right? Storm can control the weather. That's not a fallacy.
No.
Because the woman is intimately connected with nature. That's why they didn't have a man controlling the weather.
Wow. Thank you, Max. Thank you, everybody. Hit the like. This is a real honor. This is a real treat. This information is awesome. So, did you see the? Have you ever seen the video? Mr. Hayes, Chief Hayes, Sakina, the brother who can call the space, the UFOs. He can call them with his mind. Have you seen that? What about that, though? Because when you're talking about controlling the weather, I don't know if you can still hear me. I know you're muted. When you talk about controlling the weather, I've seen people be able to move the clouds. Can we call these UAPs and move the clouds? Talk to us about that.
They only answer the ones with a specific blood iron ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Your blood iron is going to be the transmitter that activates your melanin for you to be the beacon. And you have to know the frequency to tune in to call them. Right? I don't call them because I don't want them come bothering me.
Right.
I'm earthborn. So if I call them, I'm giving them permission to be here and I want their ass gone.
Okay. So are they invaders? Are they invading us?
Yes, that's the invaders. They actually came through a portal from a mirror dimension.
Oh, okay.
They inverted. This is why they tried to create so much confusion in our families, in our identities of self, because they are intrusions. They are inversions of what we are. The women that we have, 2X our women do. What looked like a male to them has 2X's.
I believe that. I can see that.
What looked like a female have an XY. I call them seahorses. And these are the ones who taught homosexuality to humans, according to the text that's written in where they landed.
And Chief Hayes, isn't that like in the, because you see the writings in the ancient writings, the Bible, of course, and so they talk about the male temple prostitutes.
Yeah,
is that similar to that?
That's the male temple prostitutes was when they was having breeding farms. This is modern interpretation of something that was going on in the ancient time. When you say that they were male temple prostitutes, they were studs.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see what you're saying.
I'm gonna rent you this stud because this is my slave.
Interesting.
They show us the same stuff when they tell us about this fake narrative slave story in the plantations with family farms. We live together anyway in family groups. They call them tribes. But if the tribe was already on the land, you have to figure out a way to disassociate him from his heritable birthright of property through the motherland. All this stuff is manipulation. It traces all the way back to Mount Hermon.
To Mount where?
Mount Hermon. They call it Mount Sinai, Mount Zion, the Holy Mountain.
I got you.
Mountain of the Fallen Ones. This is where they landed at. That wasn't a mountain, it was a launch pad.
I want to say thank you, Sasusu.
They went rogue and decided to go into business for themselves. That's what the whole story is. Simyaza and all that.
Simyaza, yeah. Book of Enoch.
Yeah. Because they decided to go into business because they wanted to conquer Earth, because under the galactic law, military conquest is permissible.
Okay, wow.
It's a free will universe, but you can be conquered and your universe can be changed depending on what God you fall under. So they want Earth to go from a free will society to a restricted will society. This is what all of your reckless laws are about. We didn't need no laws. We didn't need no prisons. All of a sudden, we need laws and prisons now because somebody called a Moor, came over here and told us we from Africa and we got to give y'all these laws and y'all got to respect these pale faces because we don't want you to know we doing it. That we responsible because we the black hand, the hidden hand, the unseen hand. We just pushing out chess pieces.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Thank you. Were there, for the record, from your perspective, because I haven't heard your perspective on slavery, was there no slave trade?
It wasn't. It was prisoners of war.
Okay.
The auctions was actually ransom parties that they used to have. It wasn't auctioning. That's the after the effect. What they tell it, the after story. That's not the story of the time. That's the story they tell when they need to recondition history so they can make the people from the land feel like they came from somewhere else so that they can claim the land from under their feet. Jacobite, supplanter, underminer. You can't undermine somebody that got firmly established roots.
Okay, so they were being ransomed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now so it's a book that talk about it called Moors and Masonry. Talk about the ransoming of because they had to keep the chiefs under control to control the tribes. We was prisoners of war on family farms. Those was not plantations.
Okay. So we were working as prisoners of war. Who are we warring with? I know we know the surface, but I mean, from your teachings, for what you know, who are the people we were warring with?
We were warring with conquistadors on the southeast. We were warring with some people called gentry in the northeast. Those are your so-called English Britons.
Mm-hmm.
And we were fighting with Huguenots in the Louisiana territory. In the Mexican territory, we was also fighting the Spaniards. The Spaniards also sacked us on the West Coast, where the Califia Castle used to be, which was a women's resort for training women in personal matters and matters of combat and matters of the keeping of the house. It was like a resort training center. They told you it was an island for some lady named Wonder Woman they called Diana, who lived on this island. This the Califia story that they have to keep it in the mind so it can wake the people up at the right time. All you got to do is put the pieces together.
Wow.
So they bombed her castle, which they built a military outpost on, and later turned it into a prison and called it Alcatraz.
Okay. Yes, I've been to Alcatraz.
Before it was Alcatraz, it looked exactly like the replica that's called the Disney Castle. That's what used to sit on the island.
Mm.
When you used to look across the bay, you used to see that big old castle. It was huge. But they bombed it endlessly with the Spanish Armada that came around South America and fought the wars against the Califia queens. But they told us it was a fictional story.
Wow.
Oh, look at that.
I'm listening. I just have to turn off my camera, but I'm listening.
See,
So all of this stuff, they was telling us our own stories and laughing in our face because we didn't know the story they was telling was related to us. We didn't know that the Disney Castle was a replica of the Califia Castle, but certain women that looked at that castle kept saying, why do that look so familiar to me? Because in past lives, she used to live there or work there or get trained there before she went back home and took over her family duties. Right? It's the same thing with how they take all of the holidays that we used to celebrate, call them pagan when we did them, and then they rebrand them to capitalize on them under the capitalistic system. So they using the ceremonial ritual days we already had, rebrand them and sell them back to us as a holiday. But they was already part of rituals we was doing long before they ever existed.
that's right.
Did they tell us if we do it and we follow it the way our ancestors tell it, that's evil? Why is my ancestors more evil than your people in that book? My ancestors ain't condemned the whole world to death by flood, fire, or anything else because they got a little attitude problem and scared that somebody guy gonna be bigger than them. That's idiocy.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear you now. I'm the only one. Just me. I'm the only guy that you can have. Just me. Go sit your sissy ass down somewhere. That catch you worshiping no other guys. Just me. I'm the only one. Slap that nigga in his mouth.
Can you talk to us about the atheists? What about them?
The atheists is just the ones who haven't came to the breakout from science to spirituality. But every one of them, whether it's atheism, whether it's quantum physics, they all gonna get to a point where the explainable falls apart upon trying to explain it. Then they have to accept the reality for what it is, but everybody got to go through their own growth. And sometimes the atheist stance is the only way you can actually get to see where the energy is flowing from for you to even determine who God is.
Did you ever even entertain that particular philosophy or that concept that they're
No, I was trying to figure out why these people trying to convince me my mama wasn't my God.
All right.
I've been trying to figure that out my whole life.
Oh wow, that's beautiful. Sorry about that.
Other one.
You know, that's like one bomb for about the 20 that you deserve, but I just had to say
Come on.
that.
Look, I remember as a baby in my mother's womb.
And wait, Chief Hayes, not to interrupt you, but I want you see people they laugh at that, but you're not the only person who has mentioned
it's actually more common than people think.
Yep.
But social pressure make people suppress the memory, and it becomes a trauma now. It's no longer part of who you are as a empowerment. It's part of your traumatic experience to accept the reality you can remember being in the room, but scared of the ridicule of being ridiculed for remembering.
Teach. Thank you.
Yeah, it's deliberately burying part of yourself.
I interrupted
in order to fit in.
You remember your mother's womb. Can you tell us what you remember being
I remember swimming in that mug. I remember the change in the temperature when I pissed in the womb. I remember a whole lot of stuff. I remember her telling my daddy, that boy in there flipping around like a monkey, and I was doing backflips off the side of her uterus. I remember it all.
That's beautiful. I believe you because I'm actually a doula. I'm a doula, and I also work as a midwife unofficially because people be coming for me like, where's your this, where's your that? But a lot of people have talked about this.
Look, I remember my mama telling my daddy, talk to the baby. He said, that little motherfucker can't hear me.
See to your daddy now, how's he feel?
Well, look, that's just Pops being himself, right? And by me knowing him, it's funny to me. But because that's how that's how you talk. He ain't he don't mean nothing.
No, he didn't.
You know what I'm saying? But some people would take it offensive because they got these fragile egos talking about they alphas.
Okay.
But they all doing beta shit.
Oh. Since you're on that, what's this phenomenon? People might say, oh, it always like this. No, but I don't think so because, I've been around for a while. What is this phenomenon of men and women in loving relationships, marriages, just unaliving each other over nothing? What is going on? Is it a frequency? It's
actually taught, right? It's part of something called uncivil civil war. The goal is done through social engineering and the society disregarding what the purpose of relationships is to attach fantasies to relationships. So you mislead the people about the purpose of the relationship, what the roles of the players in the relationship. So when the malfunction happened, you justify both parties for being the broken party in the destruction of each other. So the woman that shoots her husband because he was abusive becomes celebrated. Right? The abusive husband who eventually kills his wife also becomes villainized by celebrating. They're celebrating him, but they're celebrating him as the villain. Long as they keep the same amount of out front in the celebration, the people can still feed the energy. It's about miseducation on purpose.
Can you add in though, like the Manchurian Candidate stuff? Like, is there anything that there's some? I don't know. Is there some kind of the voice to skull thing going on with this happening?
Well, they do have technology that can shoot thoughts into your head. Right. That's all copyrighted technology that anybody that Google it's that easy to find. That's like that ain't even no secret no more.
Let me ask you a question. Now I'll be watching this on Netflix a lot, but they have this technology on Netflix. I don't know if it's real or is it out yet, but you know how they have those ear pod things Is you put it here? Okay, so they have these things that they put on your temple, right? And so they playing games with them, and I've seen a couple of shows. The show is
I
called
know exactly what you're talking about.
right. The show is called Black Mirror, but it's a few other shows, right? And they putting these things on their temples, and they doing insurance policies, and they put them on their temple, and they make them smell beer, and then they can see everything that happened without them even telling. They just ask them a few questions, and the next thing you know, they saw everything that happened. So you can't even lie on the insurance frauds, right? And things of that. And it's for the memory. And they playing video games, and now the video games, instead of literally your eyes roll back in your head. People are writing books now with this kind of stuff. This is the new technology with this little temple piece, right? And they going into other dimensions and all kind of stuff with just this little thing. It's not in your ear no more. It's on your temple.
Yeah. Now let me tell you. Let me tell you a secret.
Okay.
That's old technology. The greatest and coldest piece of technology you ever gonna find is called the human body.
Top.
It's the tech of the gods. They just coming with some man tech. The technology of mortals, but they still can't match the technology of the gods. The highest technology produced in the 3D by the gods is the human body, and they still trying to control it, where we gave the human the ability to control it without none of them devices.
I understand.
So now, while they trying to figure out how to get control of the device, the human body, the gods already gave the human control of the body and the mind.
Right. But now they trying to have a mind to replace.
Right, because they're trying to hijack you and keep you as a slave. That's that Matrix plug you in the back of the head situation. Because once they get people comfortable using it, they going to forget they in 3D anyway. It's mass disassociation. Wow. So it's turning the higher mind off so it won't participate with the body. So they can control it as a computer program instead of it being controlled as a computer for the gods called the body. Your emotions, your navigation system. Right? And once you know how to read your navigation system, all of their technology pales in comparison to what you can do with your own mind. You can deconstruct a technology with your mind just by looking at it.
And they're trying to figure out how to live forever, how the human body does that. Can you speak to us a little bit
more? The human body was never designed to deteriorate. That's programmable.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We got something called the human aging hormone. It's a lady to show you how it works named Cynthia Kingman. She's a PhD out of the UCLA Berkeley gerontology program. The human body was designed to live eternally, but we get tired of these things. We want to look different. I want a body this lifetime, where I can lift a lot of weight. But the next body, I don't want one of them big, but I want one that I can run far distances. Jumping avatars is all we call it.
Wow. Like super soldiers?
Yeah. Look, every time we jump avatars, we write a book of life.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
when we get in the avatar, how well can you live your book of life? Right? Ain't nobody here by accident. Ain't nobody here by chance.
No.
It's only those who choose to wake up and those who fight it the hardest. You know, like some people don't like to get out the bed.
Oh, yeah.
When you try to wake them up, they be ready to fight. Look, in prison, we had a rule. Don't wake nobody up because you don't know what they're going to do when they wake up.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And if you got to wake your bunkie up, you're supposed to step outside the cell.
Okay. So when you say the avatars, we're back to what we're talking about. These avatars. You heard of the string theory with Michio Kaku? Like he says, there's infinite dimensions and different realms.
Yeah, that's what the show Sliders is about.
Okay, so that is something that's actually
parallel dimensions. You can see parallel dimensions sometimes if your third eye is open. But the wavelength that a parallel universe right next to you is the outside of your light spectrum, so you can't see it. It's still there. It's still visible, but it's not visible in the light spectrum you're looking in. You have to learn how to shift your consciousness in order to see the neighboring timeline. Because the consciousness wavelength you own is designed to see the consciousness in this one timeline. But the mind has the ability, they call it being psychic, clairvoyant, to look down many different timelines to find the answer to the trajectory of the timeline you own. They call that giving you a prophecy.
Right.
It's timelines.
Like Interstellar.
Yeah. And you learn how to navigate your timeline by your mama teaching you how to navigate life. If she don't teach you correctly, you're going to make all the mistakes in the world till you figure it out. But if she teach you correctly, you might make a couple mistakes. They might be big as hell because you're not going to make no little ones.
Right.
See, so, but we always take whatever mama give us is the foundation that we build our life on. Most of us don't understand that, good or bad. And some of us came down here to be treated like shit until we get our shit together.
Did they choose that?
It's in your book of life. Right. You can't experience a reality that you didn't agree to experience. It won't exist.
Right.
So we write these books of lies, then we weave them together so we can have company while we live in it. But we all come from one central consciousness.
Yeah.
We just travel different wavelengths to get here.
And what you call I don't know if I missed you saying this before or even tonight. What is we are one with the power, or what do you think of as, is there a God that is above or more powerful than you, in your opinion?
In the universal mind, all things exist.
Right.
We are just a laptop. Our short-term memory is a RAM. Our long-term memory is a hard drive. Our infinite memory is the cloud. The universal consciousness.
Yes.
We all have access to it, but most of us too lazy to do what's required to access it because of the amount of focus and concentration through training yourself to do it. They come into it. We would rather try to live by somebody else's standard than make our own way. So we let other people tell us how to live our book of life instead of living the book of life that we wrote when we came. But that's also part of the conversation of, is it free will or is it predestination? Because the predestination part comes by you haphazardly following your book of life because you're still going to get to the final chapter. You're just going to do it haphazardly. But the one who chooses and applies his willpower is a straight and progressive growth. You got to start from somewhere, though.
So do you say, I want to ask you, would you say, or can you talk to me about, or us about, when you're outside of this material self, or okay, and you are, I guess, in between, you said jumping from avatar to avatar, are you realizing outside of self, the body, outside of flesh, oh, that's just, I could just jump from another avatar anyway. So once you're in, talk to me. Like, is that particular spirit or whatever that is, that energy inside of us when we're not motivated? Is it saying, well, this isn't anything anyway, I can move on?
Outside the body, we are what's called neuter gender light beings.
Yes.
Right. we have no emotions because the light is pure data. It's all information.
Mm-hmm.
But the wavelength of the information is feminine, a feminine wavelength. They call it wisdom. When we learn how to use it, it becomes wisdom.
Right.
Right? That's the masculine expression of it, though. The feminine expression of it is unconditional love. And that's when you connect the two, takes the highest frequency of man can reach. That's what they call your God status or your Christ mode.
I was going to say that. That's Christ.
Right. Because now you took your RAM, overrode the hard drive, and plugged straight into the universal consciousness in order to just answer the question.
I'm getting a little emotional right now from that. You hit it right there. You know, that right there. Let's stay on that, because this is the Christ mode that you said.
Mm-hmm.
It's the unconditional love put together with the wisdom.
Yeah.
And that unconditional love includes being humble or sacrificing, right?
Look, sacrifice is a misunderstood concept.
Talk to us about it.
Sacrifice is what you're willing to give up in order to help somebody with no return on investment.
Yeah.
Very few people are willing to give anything up with no return on investment.
Come on. There you go.
But the side effect,
let me ask you, that's the Christ? We're still in the Christ, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go on, because you're feeding everybody, but this is what I'm getting the chills. So
you got to get to that level. Right? This understanding that a sacrifice is to be able to not always look for something when you do something good. You do it because it's who you is. You don't do it because somebody watching.
Come on.
This is my next photo op. You do it because that's who you are. And the side effect of that is you open up the channels of reciprocity. Right? Now, the reciprocity, even when you're not looking for it, brings you the gift. And then you kick in something called gratitude, because you didn't have to pay me for it because I didn't ask you for nothing.
See. Come on.
Now, the frequency of the being is rising, but we don't have that understanding because we stuck on the money and the power.
Come on.
Instead of seeking the money and the power, seek your highest self. Your best expression of who you are is your higher self.
Yes.
If somebody asks you a question and you don't know the answer, ask yourself why. Why you don't know the answer? It is going to make you say, well, let me go find the answer.
This is beautiful.
And after you go through life of people asking you questions that you don't know the answer to, and you go seek the people who had the answer in order to understand the answer, that's called looking at it in stages and degrees. You're building yourself up, using other people's curiosity as fuel for your growth. When you get to a certain level and you see stuff that other people didn't see because they was asking you and you didn't have the answer. But now that you done went to find all of the answers that they was asking you, put it all together. When you put it all together, you give it back to the people.
And are you acting like you are God when you